I forgot to start recording, so I'll start recording now. So I'll give you a little introduction about what's been going on at ENSA, and then I will let you speak, and you'll be able to bring your academic issues. Let me know what's been going on, if there's anything you want to talk about that's related to your course, to your program. And then you can bring your facilities and technical issues, so something that has more to do with the campus, for example, the library, or if you have any issues with your classroom, or obviously now because classes are online, if there's anything that you want to talk about with the virtual learning environment and how that's going. And then after that, I'll just let you know what's coming up at ENSA as well, so the next important things that are on the calendar. So I'll just give you a recap. You probably already know this, but you're three full-time officers. So there's me, I'm your vice president for reps and volunteers. So see, that just means that I'm in charge of helping you as reps, guiding you, being a point of contact with you. And then I'm in charge of things to do with volunteering opportunities and just generally more like academic type things at the uni. Then there's Nikhil, and he's the vice president for sports and societies. So basically, you know, his name's in the title. He's in charge of everything to do with the sports clubs and all the different societies that are in Napier, so he's their point of contact. And then Ankit is the student president, so his remit is more around campaigns and mental health, and it's just a bit more general as well. So yeah, I'll just give a little update about what's been going on. So you've probably noticed that we have a new program rep system. So obviously, because we're not on campus anymore, the elections couldn't happen in class like they used to before. So now we're just doing online elections, online program registration as well. So hopefully that's gone well. Obviously, we've left some freedom to the program leaders to do this more or less how they wanted. So, you know, they could choose to do an election over, you know, with a poll or just in an online class, or sometimes you don't have an election because there's not enough students that want to put themselves forward as reps. So it's more of a just volunteer basis. And then what we did was, last year we already had an online rep training, but what we did this year was we just revamped it and changed it a little bit, just to improve it, make it a bit more interactive. So hopefully that's been useful. And yeah, we have 400 program reps this year. I think it's actually 398, but I put 400 so that I would just round it up. So that's quite a good number, so we're pleased with that. One of the other important groups that I'm helping to shape is the ENSA 50 as well. So the ENSA 50 is students who want to make a change on a more university-wide level, so not as a program rep, you know, just related to your course, but more towards everything that has to do with students in the university. So the way it works is that we have 3 different working groups, and each group is led by one of our sabbatical officers. So I'm leading the one called Promoting Positive Choices, and then Ankit is leading Supporting Student Communities, and Nikhil is leading Surviving Financially as a Student. So in our working groups, we just work towards a common goal of improving something for students. So in my group, for example, we've decided to take on the Never Okay campaign at the university, which is a campaign that tries to tackle sexual harassment at university. So we just want to teach students about consent and everything to do with that. So that's an example of what we're doing with the working group. And what we just do is that we get together during the year, have some meetings, and try to improve the student experience. So if you're interested in joining, you can still join one of our groups. There's still quite a lot of space. So if you're interested, or if you have any questions about what it's like to be in the ENSA 50, just send me an email, and you can just, my email's just there on the slide. So just send me an email, I can give you more information. And then something else that is actually going on right now is the Excellence Awards. So these are awards that celebrate like positivity in the university, and it's a student-led award. So students vote on who they think are the best lecturers, the best non-academic staff, and the best program reps and most inspirational students in the uni. So the winners are actually announced this week. So They're being announced every day this week on our social media. So if you want to look that up, they'll be on the ENSA Facebook. So that's quite a nice thing that's going on. And the nominations for the 2021 awards will open soon. Paul, do you know more or less when that would be?
It's in term 2, and it's usually around sort of February, March time. We haven't set a firm deadline on it at the moment, because obviously things will be online this year, and so that means actually it's a bit easier for us to do. So we may do them later in the term, but in term 2, sort of the middle.
Great, sounds good.
Estimate.
But yeah, looking forward to that. You might be nominated as well as reps. You never know. So that's quite a good one. Yeah, just move on to the next slide. And these are just a few events and campaigns that we've been running, just to give you an idea about what we do. You might have seen these around, you might haven't. So we had a couple of sustainability campaigns, just because it's something that's very important to Ankit and to me. We're both quite keen on being ecologically sustainable, help students be ecologically sustainable, and help the university reach its net zero carbon targets as well. So we've had a couple of campaigns, one in September, one in October. And for example, the photo that you've got there is a little booklet, an e-booklet that we launched about how to be sustainable at home. So all of this, you can find it on our website if you want more information about our campaigns and what's been going on. We also had quite a few events online with the Sustainable Society, because we work quite closely with them. And we have also had some in-person events too. So we had a conservation event outdoors in Christorfenhill, and we had a cycling tour too. So that was quite nice. And then we also tried to do some campaigns around mental health support, because we know this is something that students really need. And one of the events that we did is that we partnered with Nightline. So Nightline's a charity in Edinburgh around that helps students with their mental health. And we created a special event for international students to be able to have a little workshop to talk about isolation, homesickness, and all these different feelings that you get when you're away from home, and also during a pandemic, which doesn't help. And another big campaign that we had in the month of October was Black History Month. And during that month, we had quite a few events going on during the whole of October. One of them was a book club event where we just recommended this book for all students to read that had a link with Black History Month. We had a lot of different events to talk about various topics as well related to that. We collaborated with the BAME Society too, and the Feminist Society, to bring lots of different events. So that's just an example of different things that we have been up to this semester. And now I will stop talking, and I will ask you to bring any issues that you want to talk about. So it says here, raise your virtual hand or type a little asterisk in the chat if you want to discuss anything. You don't need to, there's not that many of us, so you can just unmute yourself and speak if you want to talk about an issue, or you can type it in the chat as well. It doesn't matter, but just if you want to talk about something, just tell us your course and the year of studies as well, so that we know what course you're on, and we can just write it down and make a note. So in this part, if there's any issues or any comments or anything that you want to say about how it's been going this semester on your course, relating to anything to do with, assessments, exams, or the way that your lectures are taught, the switch to online learning, has that gone smoothly? Have you had any complaints from the students? Anything you would like us to know? So yeah, just over to you.
Actually, it's I'll go straight for it, I
Go
guess.
for it.
No problem. I think it's just like it's not like like it's not really a present issue. I just wanted to say that like overall, I think like it does seem to be more difficult. I don't know if like others have found it. I think we quickly mentioned it at one of our SSLCs or something. I think that it kind of seems to like gathering feedback from students like in this current situation is quite a bit more difficult than like in real life because you've kind of got like less of a chance to just like randomly like even like get into like random conversations with people on campus or after a class or something like that. So it's mainly based on online learning. So I think maybe that was one of the difficulties in transitioning to like mainly online. But it's not just like anything that like the university could have done better or anything. It's just like a general comment. Because I think for us, for example, we've got a Facebook group. Then we usually ask on there, like before every meeting, like if people have any issues or whatever like that. Then we generally get like one or two responses, but it is, I think, like more difficult to be as efficient as like, or not even like as efficient, but like to get as much feedback as from last year, for example.
Okay, because do you feel like last year you got a lot of feedback from students just in person, just them coming up to you during class or after
Yeah,
class? Yeah.
I guess to be fair, like it's still like probably like was like definitely like had difficulties as well. But yeah, I think it is like kind of easier to like just casually like get some feedback in person than like I think maybe like students sometimes feel like they're going like nearly out of their way if they're like raising issues online. That's just what it seems to like. I don't actually know if that's the case. It's just my like presumption. If it is like a bit more awkward for
Mm.
people to like come forward on like online to raise their issues.
I guess I see what you mean because it makes it feel a bit more official if you just type it in the group instead of just sort of saying it to you. But okay, that makes it. So do you use, is it a Facebook group or a Facebook chat that you use for
Facebook group.
course?
I
Facebook
think
group. Okay.
yeah, I think like we still like get enough to like feedback and like we can always like ask a few people like around like outside of the group just like in like a quick message. So like we generally do get enough feedback, but I think it's just a potentially a general thing other people might be experiencing as well, or maybe not in other courses.
Okay. That makes sense. Has anyone else been? Oh, Stella says yes as well. Same. Enough. Do you want to talk about it a bit more, Stella? I'd like to
Yeah, it's just,
hear your
I
view.
mean, the difficulties for sure. We started a Facebook group to try to get people talking because I have one tutorial in person and there's only a handful of us in each tutorial. So there's really not a whole lot of other times where you can try to talk to people. Um, Last year it was a bit different because we could, you could see people while we were waiting to get into classes and after classes. But yeah, it's been with this online thing. Then I've got a group chat going with the other reps for, I have, there's no one for hospitality, but for tourism and events, the year four reps, we all just have our own silly kind of group chat going, but where we can kind of help each other. And we already did because we faced an issue that we dealt with, but we did it together because we were able to do that. Typically, we probably wouldn't have really seen each other. So it is frustrating getting people to talk because we don't see anyone. I mean, we're staring at our computers all day. I imagine everyone's dealing with the same frustration.
No, that makes sense. Thanks. And also, because I know you were a rep last year as well. Have you like? Do you feel like this year is very different as a rep, like having everything online, or is it okay?
I do. I mean, last year, yeah, I do because I mean, there's times where you could, at the end of a class, you can ask a lecturer, "Hey, can I have like 2 minutes just to ask questions?" And this year, you can try to say something, catch people in a tutorial, but we don't all have all the same people from our program and all of our classes together. So you really don't, the interaction is a lot less. It's so much like, how do I say it? It's just not, it's very impersonal. So we don't really,
Yeah.
I do feel like it was easier last year to talk to people and the year before to talk to people, but now but we have the Facebook group, which is something. We didn't have that last year because we just didn't, I don't know, getting people to join it. If you don't have mutual friends with people, it's really hard to get people to join a Facebook group. So we've really tried that this year, and then having multiple reps as well, because there's 2 for us, which just have been helpful in general, which I think is probably good for most programs to have 2. Because A, you know different people, but B, you can kind of handle things a little bit differently and can talk to someone else about it. Sorry, I feel like I went on.
No, that's really good. And also it's also not as easy on courses like yours, because there's quite a lot of students on the course as well. I mean, I don't know how many students are in your year, but at least on mine there was over 100 of us, and that makes it a lot, like, it makes it difficult because, you know, even with 2 reps, you don't necessarily know everyone, and there's always people who get left out and that you don't know who they are, and you can't add them on the group because you don't know.
Right, and we're also not allowed to. That's something that we brought up at the SSLC, was like, hey, is there a way that, you know, like when it comes to direct entrance, we don't know who the other direct entrants were. My first year being rep, I was a direct entrant, so I knew who the others were on our program. But then once you get farther in, I don't know who was coming in last year. And then this year, my I call him my co-rep, basically, like, he was a direct entrant. So I thought, oh good, he'll know people. Because we've dealt with it. We've asked about in SSLCs about it, about finding a way for us to be able to talk to people, or I mean, not get their emails. It's not like we're going to bombard them with stuff, but just to let them know that we're there for them to talk to. Which, I don't know, there's really not a system for that, which now everything being online, I think it makes it a bit more complicated, because we really do need to kind of reach out in a different way than before. Our Facebook group has got so little amount of people on it. In our program, I think, like you said, I think it's like over 100. And I think it's over 100 for tourism, hospitality, and events. So I don't know how many are exactly on tourism, but our Facebook group, I think, only has like 20 people. And we know there's people missing from it. We're sure there's people missing from it. So,
yeah, it's complicated. I remember that was an issue that I would have as well, is just, I don't know who the direct entrants are, and I'm not allowed to see the list of students due to GDPR, so I can't actually include them. And I feel like that was okay when you were in class, because you could just go up to them and be like, oh, I don't know you. The only thing that, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have an online class, at least everyone who attends, you have their names show up. So if you don't know them, at least you have their name, you know, their first name and their last name. So you can look them up on Facebook and add them to the group. So I'm thinking that might be an option that at least before wasn't feasible.
Yeah, because you can see participants in on Moodle, but I think it's all years that show up. So even I looked at like tourism and I thought, oh, that could be the way that I could find out at least how many people were in it, but it's 1 through 4. It doesn't, nowhere says how many are. I mean, it'd be different in the classes, like you said. At least on like WebEx, we can see who the participants are, but on Moodle, you definitely can't, because it shows years 1 through 4, and you kind of have to. There's no way to see. There's no way to say, hey, how many? I don't know. Just finding ways to be creative with it, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that even if it is might be a bit awkward or whatever, is that what always works is, well, at least if they know you're the rep, they can come to you. So, you know, at the beginning of a class or something, just ask the lecturer and say, oh, you know, can I just have like 2 minutes at the beginning to introduce myself and say, by the way, we have a Facebook group, and just pop it in the chat and be like, you know, make sure to join. Which that's another good thing, that now that with online classes, you can just sort of put the link to the group in the chat instead of just saying in the middle of a class that there's a Facebook group. So that can be another idea.
We actually did that last week, and 2 weeks ago I tried to get my one lecturer to let me have a few minutes at the end of class, which was probably a very bad call, because by the end of class he totally forgot that he told me that I could at least ask if anyone had any issues. And then last week, or the week before last, we put the link to the Facebook group and just said, hey, if anyone's not on it, this is how we're all trying to talk to each other. And some people don't have Facebook. I found out that everyone's got different stuff, which, I mean, granted, Facebook's not the best, but we're like, how do we contact them? Like,
I know it's so difficult. I think, yeah, because there seems to not really be a solution to it, a perfect solution. So I think it seems like you're trying your best. So hopefully it'll be okay. But yeah, has anyone else got anything they want to bring up? If you want to just let me know how it's been going this semester, if any students have been coming up to you with similar issues, or if you're struggling to reach the students, if there's anything that you're worried about.
Yeah, so I'm doing marketing with digital media and I'm a first year. And I've noticed that quite a few students in my course, because we haven't really had the opportunity to meet our lecturers in person, and it's quite an impersonal experience online, when they have problems, they're very reluctant to get in contact with them. And I didn't know if someone could encourage lecturers to remind the students that they're there if they need help, because there's quite a few students that just, they're getting themselves very stressed, and they're quite scared to reach out to the lecturers.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's probably not easiest, especially if you're in first year as well, and it's just arrived at university and you don't even get to meet your lecturers face to face. And I think obviously it all depends on how friendly those lecturers come across too, and also online you can't really see the body language as well as in person. So I completely understand that the students on your course could struggle with that, and that's a good question. I'm trying to think what could be done. I think have you tried asking maybe your program leader, if asking them to send out an email and just telling them what's going on, saying, oh, some of the students are worried, but they don't, they're a bit scared to sort of, obviously don't tell them that they're scared to email you because they think you're scary, but just say, they're a bit nervous, they're not sure what to do. Would you be okay sending out an email to all students saying, by the way, if you have any problems, feel free to contact me? Because that could be something. It's just asking them to send out that one email.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And then, yeah, because I'm sure they'll be happy to as well. And what we need to remember is it's also it's the first, for the lecturers, it's their first time with all this online environment as well. So they probably struggle with it too. And sort of some of them might, not come across as approachable as they want to be just because they don't realize. So I think, yeah, definitely just asking them to send out that email, that would be really helpful. And also you as a program rep reminding the students that, it's absolutely fine, that they can contact the lecturers about all these things, and that they are there to help, and it should be okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, if anyone else has got any other academic issues, just let me know. And if not, we'll move on to the facilities and technical issues. Cool, sounds like that's us for this part. So we'll just move on to the second. So yeah, more or less the same thing, but if you've got anything coming up, I feel like we've already spoken about this a little bit, because we spoke about, the Facebook group and struggling to reach the students. But yeah, if there's any issues or things that you'd like to bring up about being on campus, about the library, about your classrooms, or anything to do with the virtual learning environment, has the transition been smooth? Are some of your classmates, have they come up to you and said that they were struggling with the move to online learning, or do you wish that you had more online learning or less, or how is it going? And even if it's not an issue, I'd love to hear how it's going on your program as well, because I know they all work very differently. I know some people have classes at Murrayfield and at the International Conference Centre as well, so I think that's quite interesting. So yeah, go for it. Just let me know about anything.
I think just from my experience, there's nothing actually. This isn't even for my program or my year even actually, but I'm just taking part in a Spanish module. It's very specific, but I think like for example, their online assessments seem like in that class, for example, could seem like a bit nearly not disjointed, but sometimes like they don't work that well online as compared to in real life naturally. I think sometimes like there's like the issue of Moodle is like really slow to load, and I think especially like at peak hours when people are using it. So the solution that my teacher had, it actually seems like a good solution. I think she just opened it from, she just like opened up the test. You can only do them once, but they're open from like 9 until 6 in the evening, for example. So it meant that like there wasn't just like a whole like load of like students doing like going onto the thing at one time. But I think there was still an issue of like around people try to do it around 5 o'clock or something. And I think for a lot of people, it's still just like for example, crashed mid test or something like that. And I'm assuming that could be due to some like 5 o'clock rush, even on Moodle, like somehow like people accessing Moodle at 5 o'clock at a busy time. Because remember, I did it like earlier on in the day, and it was still like a bit slow, but it wasn't too bad. Oh, that's okay, Christopher. Sorry, I just thought that's no problem. But yeah, I think that was it. And honestly, like apart from that, we haven't really heard too much about people like dealing how it's going for them with the virtual learning environment. Overall, like I don't really hear any complaints. So I think for us, for my course and for my year, it's okay. It's just like a little tidbit with the Spanish class for Spanish 3.
That's fine. What course and what year are you in?
Oh yeah, sorry, my
no,
bad.
that's fine.
Languages and intercultural communication, 3rd year.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, no, that's interesting that you're talking about how Moodle can, sort of crash when it makes sense if everyone's on the website at the same time. Obviously, it can be, well, very stressful for a student if they don't manage to submit their exam on time. I think, actually, this is something that I could ask because I know it's probably different with, because university has everything, planned out for, the official exams in December. But then I know that in languages, you'll have a test that's, in the middle of the semester at a random time, and that might not be as well planned out. So that's why there've been more issues. But so hopefully, I hope that doesn't happen, when everyone has their December exams and the whole system just crashes. But it shouldn't, because they should be ready for that. But that is good to know. But I guess, if that's something that your program leader is aware of as well, then that's, fine. And if a student has not been able to like submit it on time, if the lecturer knows that it's not that person's fault and, don't penalize them for that, then that should be okay.
Yeah, I remember this already mentioned at our SSLC like a few weeks ago, I think, by just another person doing language intercultural communication, excuse me, but like in the 2nd or 1st year, for example. So like they managed to like relate to the program leaders and stuff. So I think it actually should be okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. And yeah, if anyone else wants to talk about how it's been going,
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
I don't have anything on campus. The only thing I have is that the EICC, and very few people actually show up. Today we had 3 of us, and it's not typically that way.
Wow.
But it's the only. I mean, even the lecturer today said that was his first time seeing people in so long. I mean, it's the first time him actually teaching in person. I think it's important to at least have one class that we can do that. I know next trimester it's going to be a bit different as well. I mean, from what we heard, probably the same, if anything. But I think at least having something in person has been somewhat helpful to kind of aid in the whole just university experience and not feeling like we're all kind of alone in our flats. I mean, not alone, obviously. I mean, most of us aren't fully alone, but just, I don't know. I see the pros and cons with this. I mean, I don't have to travel as much for classes, but at the same time, like I kind of do miss that daily, that interaction, that kind of the way that life was. I don't know if they're getting as much interaction with the online or not, because not many lecturers have said anything. It's just the ones that I end up seeing in person, because the class that I've got, it's the leadership, innovation, and technology, and it's 4 different lectures. So each time we see one, they're like, "It's the first time I've seen people. Like, I'm finally seeing people. Like, they need it as much as we do." Um, but no one's really saying anything as far as like complaining as far as things being online. It's different and it's an adjustment, and it's not. Personally, I'm not a fan, but I mean, if it's this or nothing, you know what I mean? It's this, so it's there for me. But
No, thanks. Yeah, I completely understand. I feel just that it's difficult because there's also been a student survey that went out, asking the students, do you prefer online learning? Do you prefer in-person learning? Do you prefer blended? And everyone says different things, because obviously there are advantages to both sides. And I think, being online, it's amazing. You don't need to travel. You just don't need to move from your house. Everything is just very comfortable and handy. But then again, you just miss that normal social interaction as well. So this is a personal opinion, but I will agree with you that having at least one class a week that's in person is just really nice, and just to actually be able to see your classmates and to see the lecturer and just be in a normal classroom environment, I think is quite motivating as well. And I guess because obviously you're in 4th year, so you already know your classmates, but I'm thinking, for someone who's in 1st year, having everything online is just probably a bit odd, because you don't really get to properly meet anyone on your course and have that sort of experience of going into the classroom. So I don't know what it's been like for you, Catherine, because I know you're in 1st year. Have you had any classes in person?
Yeah, so once a week I have a tutorial in person, which has been nice, because you've actually I've had the chance to actually meet some people, because like you said previously, I know very, very few people on my course, and I don't know if other year groups can relate to this, but when we're doing like an online lecture or tutorial, nobody shows their face, so you just see the name on the screen, which kind of makes it a little bit harder to try and open your social bubble a bit, because you don't know who else is in your class. But I mean, I've kind of enjoyed the online learning because it's so convenient, but also it's quite hard at the same time, because I know very few people, but it is what it is kind of thing. So
yeah, no, I understand. I think it is frustrating when everyone's got their cameras off, and I mean, obviously, that sometimes there is a reason. Well, you've got technical issues, you can't really have the camera on. But I remember a lot of students telling me, I'm in an online class and everyone's got their camera off, and I'm just thinking, well, it's just odd, because you can't, if you're in a physically in a classroom, you have to see everyone, and the way that you feel, it just makes sense, because obviously you've never really met these people before, seen them before, so it's not like you know who they are and now they've switched their cameras off. It's like, no, they've always had the camera off, so it's just you don't know. But yeah, I think I'm wondering if there's a way that they sort of encourage students to put their cameras on during classes, because, and I don't know if it's as simple as the program rep saying, please guys turn your cameras on, because that might not work at all, or the lecturer saying, please turn your cameras on. But I think what happens with that is that it's a bit of a vicious circle, because some people will have their cameras off, and then the ones who have them on will feel self-conscious, so they'll turn them off, and then everyone's got them off for the rest of the semester. But I think it can just work the other way as well, is that when most people have the cameras on, people who have them off will switch them on as well, because everyone just wants to copy what other people are doing ultimately. So that's just what happens. But I'm thinking maybe there is something that ENSA can do to encourage people to switch their cameras on, to be honest. Like, that is something that I'll have a think about it. But Stella's saying that she has one lecturer who asks them to turn it on if they feel comfortable, so he can feel like he's not just staring at his laptop. Yeah, I feel that's another thing, is asking, you know, the lecturers asking the students, please turn your cameras on, because they have a bit more power. They can, you know, obviously they're not going to force them, but if they say, you know, please turn them on, then I'm hoping that most students will. I don't know, do any of your lecturers ask them to turn the cameras off, or is it not on, or is that not happened? Catherine, no. Okay, well, maybe that can be a more or less simple solution, is you could just again email them as well and say, oh, by the way, I think it's a bit of a shame that everyone's got their cameras off, especially that we're in first year. Could you maybe start asking at the beginning of a lecture, you know, please turn your cameras on? And that might actually work. So that's something that you could do.
Yeah, that's another good idea. Thank you.
That's good. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. So yeah, and Stella's saying, yeah, for lecturers as well, this is different to them too. And yeah, I agree with that. I think it can be a bit sad for them to sort of feel like you don't know what's, you know, the person has the camera off. You don't know if they're just in the kitchen cooking while you're speaking, or if they're actually listening to you. So I think it can be very difficult for them as well. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, has anyone else got any other comments? No? Okay. Sounds good. I'll just move on to a few other updates from ENSA then. And this is about what's coming up in the next few weeks. So we have our student council, and that's happening on the 26th of November. So the student council is basically similar to the rep forums, but it's for all students at the university. They all come together and you just show up and you can talk about any issues. So, you know, it can be about, oh, there's not enough financial support for international students, or we wish there was more mental health support, or I don't know, there's not enough seats in the library. It can be anything at all. So this is something that we encourage all students to attend. So would be great to have you there. Would be great as well if you can share this with your classmates too and encourage them to come. And this student council is going to be a bit different as well, because we're going to start talking about the referendum as well. So we're going to have a referendum at ENSA, because our plan is to change the constitution. So at ENSA, because we're a charity, we have a constitution that says how we're supposed to do things, and it's more or less the rules that we need to go by, and sort of the structure of what we do and what we are as an organization. And we're wanting to change some things in the constitution, but we're not allowed to make any changes unless we have a referendum where students vote. And some of these changes, we will explain them at that meeting. But for example, we're wanting to change the title of the 3 full-time officers. So instead of having a president and 2 vice presidents, we're thinking about having 3 co-equal presidents, and we'll have, you know, different names and do different things. So that's an example of the changes that we want to make. But what's a bit complicated in all this is that we need at least 10% of all Napier students to vote in that referendum. And to get that 10% is not that easy. So that's why we need like all the support we can get from the program reps, from every student to share, you know, once the referendum is out, to just share it as much as possible so that students vote at it. And because if we don't get that 10%, we won't be able to change the constitution. And we've been wanting to change it for a while now, so it's just going to drag on. But yeah, that's just a quick update about what's coming up at the student council. So it's up on social media as well. So the event is up on Facebook, so you can just click and go in there, and the link to the WebEx will appear closer to the time. And then something else that we've got going on at the moment that you probably saw on the Facebook, on the REP Facebook group as well, that I shared, is that we just released a COVID-19 survey to students. And this is not, so it's not a university survey, it's just a specific one that we do at ENSA, where we just want to ask students how they feel about their uni experience this year, how it's been affected by COVID. And the reason for asking all these things is because we want to make sure that we can support you as best as possible at ENSA, because obviously everything's so different this year that we just need to find new ways to support you, to entertain you. Obviously, we can't really do any in-person events at the moment as well, so it's all a bit complicated. We need to see, if there's something that we should focus on more. So ultimately, the point of the survey is the more students answer and reply to the survey and fill it in, the better it is, because we can help you. And, the more entries we get, the more opinions, then we'll have a better idea of what students actually want, and we can create events and campaigns around those answers that we got in the survey. So the link is just here on the slide as well. So if you can share it with your classmates and complete it yourself as well, that would be great. It doesn't take too long, and yeah, just share it around. I don't know. I know some people hate filling in surveys. I've always liked it because it's a way to procrastinate from absolutely everything that you're doing, because it seems like you're doing something important. So yeah, and that's it for what's coming up. And just letting you know, these are our contact details so if there's any issues that you would like to speak about a bit further with me, you can just email. So anything to do with your role as a rep, any academic issues, you can email me, you can message me on Facebook as well. You can also message me on Instagram. I'm everywhere. And Nikhil, if there's anything to do with sports societies that you want to talk about, you can also email him or send him a message on Facebook. And Ankit is also there if you want to talk about any campaigns or anything relating to mental health. Those are his contact details. So just letting you know that we're always there to help you. So if you've got anything that you want to talk about, I reply really quickly, so just go for it. And don't hesitate to ask me if you've got any questions or whatever. But yeah, that's it for tonight. That's good. We made it before 7. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for volunteering to become a rep, because this year, being a rep, having a rep, when you're a student is even more important now than ever, because as you said, you don't really have that connection with the university, with the other classmates. It's a bit more lonely, it's a bit more difficult. So, the students really need you there to be able to let you know about their issues, about what's going on. And it's great for you to be there, to be the point of contact with the lecturers, with the program leader, with ENSA as well. So yeah, well done. And just, keep up the good work. And if you ever have any issues, you can contact me whenever. And yeah, I think that's it. I will stop the recording now.